nuclear industry has been stepping up the pressure. It's time, they say, to give the nuclear option a chance. And the government seems to be calling their bluff, shooting the starting gun for new nuclear build in the UK. Now, the rest of the world can sit back and watch how many new power stations actually get built, who stumps up the cash, and how long it takes. The Dungeness B nuclear power station here on the Kent coast demonstrates the nuclear industry's problems. It holds the world record as the nuclear power station longest in construction, 23 years. Work began here in 1965, yet it wasn't commercially running until 1989. The government says we need a whole new generation of nuclear power stations to maintain Britain's energy security, and without it, we won't meet our climate change targets. But is either proposition true, and how much is all this going to cost the rest of us? At his monthly press conference this morning, we asked Gordon Brown what fresh incentives he'll offer the industry to build new nuclear power stations. He didn't say.
I think it's difficult for me to preempt an announcement that will be made to the House of Commons, but I think I can say to you that all the details of what the nuclear programme would look like if we went ahead with it will be announced on Thursday by John Hutton. So this is a very comprehensive announcement that will look at all aspects of the nuclear industry.
The practical problem of building nuclear power stations shouldn't be underestimated. There's now reportedly a 3-year backlog for reactor pressure vessels. This is one of only 2 sites in the world where they're built, the Arriva plant in France. There's also a worldwide shortage of skilled nuclear engineers, all of which is pushing up the estimated capital cost of new build. The government's own consultation conceded that even if an order were placed today, it could be 8 years before construction began. If it takes an optimistic 5 years to build, it would still be 2021 before we had our first new nuclear power station, when the government expects the so-called energy gap to start kicking in years before that. The energy security argument also says that nuclear new build can make us less dependent on imported oil and gas. The problem with that argument is that most of Britain's oil is used in transport, so can't be replaced by nuclear electricity. And around half of our gas is used to heat domestic homes and water, so again can't be replaced by nuclear electricity. And even the government's own advisors say the electricity capacity nuclear power could provide in the future is extremely limited.
If you wanted to replace the current nuclear plants with new build nuclear plant, you could probably just about do that by, say, 2024. But having done that, you've then achieved a reduction in carbon dioxide emissions of only about 4%. So it's a limited contribution to a very significant task. But you've chosen a technology to do that, which has a very, very long legacy in terms of waste, in terms of decommissioning issues, and potentially in terms of its implications for nuclear proliferation at the international level.
Green groups argue that spending money on nuclear diverts resources from renewable technologies and energy efficiency that could cut our carbon footprint faster and more cheaply. And it's hard to see why the government's reluctant to spend more on carbon capture and storage, a technology that could make coal power stations cleaner here, but more importantly could provide a blueprint for China, where the real problem lies. China's explosive economic growth will be built on coal for many decades to come. There's no sense that Thursday's announcement includes new plans to store radioactive waste. The French still stick it in barrels in giant concrete bunkers. And no sign of new plans for safer, cheaper reactors, or how to guarantee the taxpayer won't end up bailing out the industry. But nuclear power supporters say it's a new world now.
Whatever you think of nuclear, civil nuclear power as an absolute, its role is changed once you take the whole climate change, global warming debate into account. And what we were being asked to do was to allow nuclear power, which is our one significant source of carbon-free electricity at present, simply to wither on the vine, so that everything we did in renewables for the next 20, 30 years, and I'm in favour of doing everything we possibly can in renewables, would simply be cancelled out by the loss of the nuclear contribution.
So what will the government actually announce on Thursday? It'll be laughed out of court if all it says is nuclear power, yes please. And given that the industry hasn't been exactly rushing to build nuclear power stations so far, they'll need some fairly hefty incentives to change that. With talk of waste hotels in which the industry can rent space and a minimum carbon price so the industry can trade cuts in emissions on the carbon markets, it's these hidden subsidies that critics will be looking out for on Thursday. Of course, the Treasury will have to approve any such spending. So at the end of the day, it all boils down, as ever, to how much a nuclear future will cost and who ends up paying.